My exes taught me great techniques in bed that I later used with Norman. My fiancée stood at our wedding and played a tribute video of her exes, turning our dream ceremony into a public nightmare. My name's Norman. I'm 29 years old and my ex, Geraldine, is 27. We had been together for 3 years and, in theory, we were in the best moment of our relationship. At least that's what I thought. We met at a gathering with friends. She was the cousin of a coworker. From the beginning, she struck me as a very cheerful woman, with an energy that filled any room. She was sociable, fun, and always had a smile that was contagious to everyone. I, on the other hand, am quieter, more reserved, one of those who prefer to listen before speaking. Maybe that's what made us work. We were different, but we complemented each other well. During the first years of our relationship, everything was quite stable. We didn't have any major crises or serious arguments. Geraldine was affectionate, thoughtful, and talked a lot about the future. Very early in the relationship, she began to hint at the subject of marriage. At first, I thought she was just saying it as a joke or a fantasy, but as time went on, she became more insistent. She would say it was time to think about something serious, that she didn't want to waste more years without a defined direction. I didn't feel pressured, but I was surprised. I always believed marriage would come when we both felt it was the right time. However, Geraldine talked about the topic with increasing enthusiasm. One day, without any warning, she showed me a list of possible wedding venues. I remember laughing a little and telling her, "I haven't proposed to you yet." She replied very seriously, "But you will." And she was right. Months later, at a dinner with her parents, I proposed to her. There were no fireworks or a movie-like production, just an intimate dinner and a ring. Even so, she cried with emotion. It was one of the most sincere and happy moments I remember of us. From then on, it was all planning. We got married a year after that day. Geraldine wanted a big wedding with many guests, live music, and an elegant hall. I would have preferred something smaller, more intimate, but I agreed because I wanted to see her happy. In reality, the organization was chaos. Time caught up with us. Budgets were stretched more than expected, and there were arguments over minimal things, like the color of the flowers or the guest list. Still, I must admit that the result was impressive. The place was decorated with warm lights, white and gold flower arrangements, and an arch of roses at the entrance that looked like it was from a romantic movie. Everything seemed perfect. A few weeks before the wedding, there was a conversation that seemed strange to me, although at the time I didn't give it much importance. We were at home reviewing the guest list. Geraldine was crossing out and adding names when she suddenly said, "Hey, would you be upset if we invited some of my ex-boyfriends?" I thought she was joking. I laughed and asked if she was serious. She nodded with complete calm. "Yes, some were an important part of my life. I haven't seen them in years, but it would be nice to close chapters, don't you think?" I was speechless for a few seconds. "No, Geraldine," I replied. "It makes no sense to invite your exes to our wedding." She shrugged and looked at me with a smile that was meant to be innocent. "Well, it wasn't a big deal. I just said it because I think it's a mature gesture. Besides, if you want, you can invite your exes too." I shook my head. "I won't, and I'd prefer you didn't either." She sighed, mumbled an "okay," and didn't mention the topic again. Or so I thought. The wedding day arrived sooner than expected. I remember waking up that morning with a mix of nerves and excitement. My friends were with me at the hotel, helping me get ready. They made jokes, we toasted with beer, and we talked about how quickly everything had happened. Meanwhile, Geraldine was in another room at the hotel with her bridesmaids. I didn't see her until the ceremony began. When she entered the venue, everyone fell silent. She was wearing a white lace dress, long and elegant, with a veil that fell to her shoulders. She looked beautiful, I can't deny it. She walked towards me with a huge smile, and, at that moment, I felt it was all worth it. The altar was decorated with white flowers, the lights were dim, and the air smelled like jasmine. The guests were seated in perfectly ordered rows, and behind them, I could hear a string quartet playing softly. It was a dream scene. During the ceremony, we exchanged vows. Hers were long and emotional. She said I had been her calm after the storm, that with me she had learned what real love was, and that she wanted to grow old by my side. I confess I was moved. She cried while she spoke, and, when it was my turn, I tried to keep my voice steady, although inside I was just as touched. After the vows came the signing of the certificate The applause, the hugs, the photos, and the typical rice toss. Everything went perfectly. The reception was also a success. The food was delicious. The music was cheerful. People were laughing and dancing. I felt relieved, happy that everything had turned out so well after months of stress. Even my parents, who were usually somewhat reserved, were enjoying themselves. I remember my mother whispering in my ear, "You can tell she loves you. Look at the way she looks at you." And she was right. Geraldine radiated happiness. During our first dance, she couldn't stop smiling. She had that look that mixes tenderness and triumph, as if she were living exactly the moment she had always dreamed of. We were dancing a slow song while people watched us. I felt that nothing could ruin that moment, until it happened. While we were dancing, she leaned towards me and whispered in my ear, "Love, I have to do something. I hope you don't mind." Before I could ask what she meant, she let go of my hands and ran towards one of her friends, one of the bridesmaids. She looked nervous, but also excited. I thought it was some kind of surprise for the guests, maybe a song or a little speech. I stood in the middle of the hall, watching as her friend dragged a projector and connected it to a laptop. Geraldine took the microphone. Her voice sounded loud and confident, amplified by the speakers. "Attention everyone," she said with a smile. The conversations gradually died down. The guests turned towards her, curious. "I want to say a few words. Today is one of the happiest days of my life." She looked at me, and, for a moment, I felt tenderness. "I love you, Norman. I want to live with you until we're 80 in a house full of children and grandchildren. But it's also worth mentioning the people who were part of our story and who, in some way, thanks to them, we are here today." There were some applause and murmurs of approval. I smiled, thinking she might pay tribute to her parents or to relatives who were no longer present. However, something inside me tensed up. I don't know why, but I had a strange feeling, a sudden discomfort. The projector turned on. The white light illuminated an empty wall of the hall. The laptop showed a slide with a black background and gold letters. In the center, the title read, "Tribute to My Ex-Boyfriends." For an instant, I thought it was a joke. I stood still, waiting for everyone to laugh and for her to say it was some kind of joke to break the ice. But no, nobody laughed. There were only murmurs of bewilderment. I was frozen. I couldn't move. My smile vanished in a second. Geraldine was still standing in front of the microphone with that same happy, almost proud expression, while the slide remained projected. Some guests looked at each other, confused. Others covered their mouths as if trying to hold back a nervous laugh. I just felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't understand what was happening or why she was doing it. I remember with painful clarity the moment the first slide changed. On the screen appeared a photograph of a smiling young boy in a high school uniform. Below the image, in cursive letters, was the name Miguel. Geraldine looked at the projection with a nostalgic smile, then raised the microphone and began to speak. "This is Miguel," she said in a sweet voice, as if remembering an old youthful love. "We only lasted 6 months, but thanks to him, I discovered how to love. He was the first one to teach me what it really felt like to feel." Some guests let out a nervous laugh. I remained frozen. She continued, "Miguel was also the one who took my virginity. I remember it was painful, but he was very tender with me. Wherever he is now, I hold a huge affection for him." The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. Not even the waiters knew what to do. I was still in the middle of the dance floor, looking at that image projected on the wall, feeling the blood drain from my body. I swear I wanted to move, but I couldn't. My muscles were so tense I could barely breathe. It was as if my body had betrayed me, as if I were watching everything from the outside without being able to intervene. My mind went blank. I didn't understand what was happening. Everything was so absurd, so out of place, that my brain simply didn't react. She moved on to the next slide. This time, a photo of a man in a formal shirt taking a selfie in an office appeared. The title said Marty, my first job. Geraldine let out a small laugh before speaking. "Oh, Marty," she said in a playful tone. "If he had done things right and not cheated on me, he would be the one at this wedding with me." There was an attempt at a laugh from her, a forced sound that died in the air. No one else laughed. She, oblivious to the silence, continued talking. "Marty was the one who taught me everything. He taught me to truly love, and he also taught me to hate. It still hurts to talk about him, but in the end, we are here because of him." She paused for a moment, looked at me, and added with a laugh, because he taught me some very good techniques in bed that I later applied with Norman, and that's why he fell in love with me. Ha ha ha. No one said anything. The silence was so heavy you could hear the hum of the projector. I felt an unbearable heat in my face, a mixture of shame, anger, and bewilderment. I couldn't believe I was hearing this, that she was saying it in front of all our friends, our families, my parents, my coworkers. Some guests looked away. Others just stood motionless, not knowing how to react. I could see my mother covering her mouth in horror and my father looking at the floor with an expression of total disbelief. I still didn't move. I just listened. I just watched until she changed to the third slide. Now another man appeared. The text below said Sam, the impossible love from work. Geraldine took a deep breath, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. Sam. Well, he was, but she couldn't finish. Something inside me broke. That's enough, I shouted with all the strength I had. The sound echoed throughout the hall. The music stopped. Everyone turned towards me. Geraldine was startled, lowered the microphone, and looked at me with an expression of surprise and confusion. What's wrong, love? She said as if she didn't understand the gravity of what she was doing. It's just a little tribute. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I repeated, my voice breaking with rage and shame. Are you crazy? What the hell are you doing? I walked straight towards her without thinking, my body trembling, took the projector, and threw it to the ground. The impact was dull. The device broke into pieces, the lamp went out, and the laptop that was connected fell behind it, making a metallic noise as it hit the floor. Some guests screamed, others stepped back. You're an idiot, I yelled at her, my voice torn. How could you think this was a good idea? Geraldine was frozen. It seemed that only then did she understand the magnitude of what she had done. I was breathing heavily, my heart beating so hard it hurt my chest. I looked around and saw the horrified faces of everyone. My mother was crying. My father had his fists clenched. My friends looked at me, not knowing what to do. This wedding is over, I said, raising my voice. Get out, and everyone get out of here. The silence lasted for a few seconds until some people began to slowly get up. Others approached me, trying to calm me down. One of my best friends, Logan, ran to me and put his hand on my shoulder. Brother, come, he said in a soft voice. Let's take a breather. Yes. 3 other friends also came over to support him. My parents came towards me. I could barely stand. My legs felt weak, my vision was blurry. As they tried to pull me away, Geraldine took a step towards me. Her face was pale, her eyes teary, but she was still holding the microphone. Love, she said, approaching. I'm sorry, I didn't think it was such a big deal, but don't worry, we can continue. I love you. My mother stepped between us. Her voice boomed throughout the hall. Get away. Don't you dare come near him. Go away, forget about my son forever. Geraldine ignored the warning, kept moving forward, and took my face in both her hands. Her fingers were cold, trembling. Love, please forgive me. It was a misunderstood detail. We can just continue with the wedding. I pushed her hand away abruptly. You're a bitch, I said with a broken voice. Go away. She flinched, but instead of backing away, she responded with something that left me cold. But baby, if we had invited them, none of this would have happened. At that moment, I heard a scream from behind her. You heard her, bitch, get out. It was my older sister, Tina. I hadn't seen her approach, but suddenly she was there, walking with quick, furious steps. She grabbed Geraldine by the hair with force and spun her around. Before anyone could stop her, she slapped her so hard that the sound echoed throughout the room. Geraldine fell to the floor, unconscious or stunned. Her parents, who until that moment hadn't said a word, rushed to help her, though they didn't try to defend her. They seemed as confused and ashamed as everyone else. My friends took me by the arms and led me out of the hall. A few meters from the main building, there was a small wooden cabin we had rented as a rest area for the bride and groom. They carried me there because my legs no longer responded. I remember fragments like flashes. Logan putting a water bottle in my hands. My mother stroking my hair while repeating, "Easy, son. It's over." My father talking to the others, asking that no one take pictures, to please turn off their phones. I heard everything distorted, as if I were underwater. The voices mixed together from a distance. I could only see lights and shadows. I felt my chest tighten, my hands go numb, and every time I tried to speak, only a choked sigh came out. I don't know how much time passed like that. Maybe an hour, maybe two, until I could finally breathe more calmly. The party, of course, was over. The guests had left. My parents decided to take me home. I didn't argue. I just nodded in silence. During the drive, I looked out the window without saying a word. The night was completely dark. The suit stuck to my body, soaked with sweat. I felt a mixture of shame and emptiness so deep that I could barely hold my head up. When we got home, my parents helped me inside. I sat on the couch and just stared into space. Everything was silent. Geraldine didn't call again that night or the next day, and as I tried to sleep, all I could think about was that white screen with golden letters and the phrase that started it all. Tribute to my ex-boyfriends. I couldn't believe it had actually happened. 3 days have passed since that night. 3 days since my life completely changed. And although time seems to have passed, in my head everything is still frozen at that moment. In that room illuminated by the projector with all the faces looking at me and that absurd phrase on the screen. Tribute to my ex-boyfriends. I can't sleep well. Every time I close my eyes, I see Geraldine again, smiling with the microphone in her hand, talking about them as if it were something normal, something nice. I wake up soaked in sweat, with my heart racing, remembering the humiliation, the silence, the feeling of being trapped in front of everyone, unable to move. I've cried more than I'd like to admit, sometimes in silence, sometimes screaming in helplessness. It's hard for me to accept that the woman I was going to share my life with, the one I made plans with, the one I dreamed of having children with, was capable of doing something like that. I haven't gone to work. I called my boss the day after the wedding and asked for vacation time. I told him I needed time, that I was going through a complicated personal situation. He didn't ask for details, but from his tone, I knew he had already heard what happened. By now, probably everyone knows. My phone won't stop ringing. The message inbox is full of notifications from friends, colleagues, even acquaintances I barely see, all saying the same thing. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry everything ended this way. I'll always be here to support you. Some messages came with screenshots or comments that I prefer not to open. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to relive that night over and over again. I decided to stay at my parents' house for a couple of days. They insisted I stay longer, that I wasn't ready to go back alone. But after the third day, I felt I had to go back. Not because I was forced, but because I needed to get on with my life, even if it was little by little. I told them I would be fine, that I just wanted to rest in my own space. My mother hesitated, looked me in the eyes, and asked, "What if she shows up?" "She won't," I replied in a tired voice. She got the message. Or so I thought. When I got to my house, I noticed something strange from the beginning. The door wasn't locked. My heart raced. I thought maybe a friend or family member had come in to check that everything was okay. But as soon as I opened the door, the familiar scent of Geraldine's perfume hit my face. There she was, sitting on the living room sofa, wrapped in a blanket, with a bowl of popcorn on her lap and a movie playing on the television as if nothing had happened. When she saw me walk in, she smiled with that same naturalness that had bewildered me so much. "Love," she said, getting up gently. "I've been waiting for you for days. Please, let's talk." I stood motionless for a moment. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just turn around and leave. But the words came out on their own. "Get out. Get out of here." She took a step towards me without losing her cool. "Love, we're alone. You don't have to act all macho now. I know you don't want me to leave. You love me too." I just stared at her in silence. "Geraldine, you don't understand anything." My voice was trembling, not with fear, but with contained anger. "You destroyed me in front of everyone." She shook her head, moving closer. "It wasn't my intention to hurt you. This was just a consequence of your decisions. I just wanted to close the cycle, love." I had even already contacted some ex-boyfriends, and they had confirmed they would come. It was going to be something symbolic, something nice. I looked at her, incredulous. It was as if I was listening to a completely different person, someone disconnected from reality. "Are you crazy, Geraldine?" I said, taking a step towards her. "You're a crazy bitch. You have no brain. Your skull is empty. Did you really think that was a good idea?" She started to cry, but her tears didn't move me. "Love, I love you. Calm down, don't talk to me like that." She took another step and tried to touch my arm. "Look, let's relax. Let's lie down in bed and solve this fight the way we like to do it. You know, the best part of couples fights is the reconciliation. She said that with a shy smile and suddenly started to take off her clothes. First the sweater, then the blouse, and she took a step towards me, trying to hug me. I felt a deep disgust, a rejection I had never felt for anyone. "You make me sick," I said, staring at her. "I don't want to touch you with a damn stick. You don't know the revulsion I feel towards you, towards your body. I want you to leave and never come back." She stood still with her clothes half off, looking at me with her eyes full of tears. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You don't mean it, I know. You're hurt, but you love me." I didn't answer. I took her firmly by the arm and led her to the door. She tried to resist, but not with force, more with pleas. "Norman, please, don't do this. We can fix it, I swear." I opened the door and, without looking at her, gently pushed her outside. She stumbled a little, turned to me with her face full of tears. "Love, don't leave me like this. I love you. I love you." She knocked on the door several times, calling my name between sobs. I could hear her voice breaking more and more until it finally faded away. I didn't open it. I didn't say anything. I just let myself fall to the floor with my back against the door, listening to my own loud, chaotic heartbeats. I don't know how much time passed until everything was silent. Update. 2 months have passed since that day. I haven't heard from Geraldine again. Not a call, not a message, not an attempt to contact me. At first, I thought she would show up, that she would insist, that she would come to apologize or to justify the unjustifiable, but no. She simply disappeared. And in a way, I'm grateful for it. Getting back to my routine hasn't been easy. People still look at me with pity when they see me on the street or at work. Some pretend not to know anything, but their gestures give them away. I've had to listen to comments disguised as concern, phrases like, "everything happens for a reason," or, "at least you got to know her before having kids." I appreciate the intention, but there's no possible comfort for something like this. Sometimes I think about how a person can destroy something so big in a matter of minutes. How a simple act, a whim, can erase years of trust, love, and respect. I don't hate her, not anymore, but I don't remember her with fondness either. When I think of Geraldine, I feel something like a void, as if it were someone else's story, something that happened to another person that was just told to me. The house still has some traces of her. A sweater in the closet, a forgotten perfume in the bathroom, a mug with her name on it. Sometimes I stop to look at these objects and wonder at what point she became like that, when she lost the sense of what was right and what was not. Maybe I'll never understand. I've tried to occupy my mind with other things: work, the gym, going for walks, reading. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but little by little, life goes on, and although it still hurts, at least it no longer paralyzes me. My parents are still worried, but they know I need space. My sister Tina calls me almost every day. She still regrets hitting Geraldine, although deep down we all know that no one judges her for it. I myself don't know if I would have done it differently. The truth is that that wedding was the end of more than just a relationship. It was the end of an illusion, of a version of myself that believed love was enough. Today I know that loving is not enough. You have to have respect, empathy, common sense, and, above all, boundaries. And when one of the two loses them, what remains is just a ruin of what could have been. I don't know if I'll ever get married again. I don't even know if I'll be able to trust like that again, but at least now I understand something I didn't before. Love isn't shown with grand gestures, or with pretty words, or with absurd tributes. Love is shown in the details, in consideration, in not humiliating the other, in not using their trust as a stage to show off. Geraldine was the most painful mistake of my life, but also the greatest lesson. And although it still hurts me to admit it, that wedding, as tragic as it was, marked the beginning of something new. My life without her,